So today, instead of talking about graphic design, we're going to talk about interior design, which is weird, because that's not what I do. But I think it's perfectly safe to share that what's happening behind me has been a tragic mess for a while, and at least in my opinion, has been something that just irks me, bothers me, and we want to do something different about it. Now behind me, you can see I've got a couple of shelves, and that stores all my materials for when I was doing artwork and sending out prints and whatnot, and there's a helicopter flying overhead. We good? Okay, then in front of that, there are these grids that I used to use when I would do art shows. I would hang my art up there. I wasn't doing art shows in person anymore, mostly because it was a pandemic, and secondly, because I just don't want to do that anymore. So I just had these grids back here as background. For a while, I would just hang a painting across all three, and that was my backdrop. But the problem is that I was constantly having to move these things around, and I would have to take the painting down, then move them around, then put them back up. So I thought, well, what if I just put individual pieces of art up there, and I had these two posters. So I put the two posters up, and then there's one that's not a poster, and it just doesn't look good to me anymore. Let's be straight up. I'm annoyed with all this stuff back here, but this is my shed, and this is where we store things. Look, there's my Christmas ornaments and things. And it bothers me that all that stuff is just in frame. It feels like it feels incomplete. So I thought, why don't I design something like a banner that can go on each one of these grids, and then once I have that established, rise them up a little bit with maybe, I don't know, wood blocks or something. I don't know, it doesn't matter. Push them up a little bit higher so that they block up all this stuff back here. That's the plan. But what we're gonna do today is build those three banners in Affinity Publisher. The basic logistics are this. I've got 3 panels. They're all 6 feet tall and I believe 3 feet wide. They are 2 feet wide, so I need to have a document that is 6 feet by 6 feet square and then split it into thirds. Easy, except for the part where you're working on a 6 foot by 6 foot project at 300 DPI, which could be, that could be a bit of a challenge on Affinity sometimes. I wanted to have this triptych effect where it's actually one piece just broken up into 3 pieces that, just are sitting back. You'll see what I mean when I'm done. Let's start with a 6 by 6 feet. We're gonna do prefer linked. I could use embedded and that would be a little bit more efficient, but linked keeps my file size down, and because we're working so large, you probably wanna make sure we do that. I don't need a master, and I'm only doing 1 page now. What I'm gonna do is design it and then split it and break it into 3 separate pages. That's why we're working in Publisher as opposed to in Affinity Photo or Affinity Designer. So I can just quickly and easily just kind of group everything together, just copy and paste it into the next page, move it to the right position, copy and paste it, move to the next position. It just makes it easier that way. And I'm doing CMYK because I'm gonna get this printed at a print shop. If I sent them an RGB file, they'd laugh me out of the room. I'm not actually gonna put any bleed on this just yet. What's likely going to happen is they're going to print it all out and they're gonna trim off a little bit on each end. And I'm not really that concerned about it. We're not gonna put anything important back there that needs to be or will be marginalized by a bleed trim. It's gonna be okay. It'll be fine. I'm gonna go ahead and throw in a couple of lines here at the 2 foot mark and the 4 foot mark, and then one in the middle here at the 3 foot mark. That's just to give myself some guidelines so that I know where I'm working. Really, the most important thing that I need to consider is I need to make sure that whatever I put on here is expressive of, my style of what you would expect from Dave Connery Art and Design, but isn't so distracting when it's sitting back there that's what you're paying attention to instead of me. Pay attention to me, not what's happening back there. I want something back there that looks beautiful, but doesn't take away from this pretty face. I'm starting by just bringing in some imagery here. I don't 100% sure, wow, that's a small image. The one thing I have to keep in mind is that some of the images that I bring in, they are maybe very large. They may be very normally large images, but of course I'm working 6 by 6. So these things are going to come in small. And now that I think about this, one thing I probably could have considered is that this is going to be printed on vinyl and it's going to be sitting in the background there. I'm not really looking for super crispness. We're not looking for super tight, crisp typography and imagery because it's going to be large and it's going to be in the background, and it's obviously because I'm using a camera that has like a soft focus. Some of it's going to be soft anyway. Maybe I can reduce the size of my document from 300 DPI to, like, say 200 DPI, and whenever I bring in new images, like I brought this one in here, it will come in a little bit bigger and I won't have to stretch it too much. Delete that one right now, and I'm gonna go up here, document setup. It's gonna change this to 200 DPI. I want something a little bit lighter, something that has a little bit of a dystopian feel, but also kind of a futuristic face in the background, but it's going to be obscured quite a bit. I really don't know. I'm just kind of like looking for something that feels good at the moment. They really want me to use this image of this woman here because she is everywhere, which she's got a very intriguing look. I mean, let's look at that. Wow, she's very intense. Different coloration. It's okay. Maybe I can work with that. I'm gonna flip her on her side. Do that over here. Plow. Now I want to alter this one, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a rasterized image instead of the image. And I go over to the photo persona, go to layers. First off, a black and white. Still a little bit too much gray, so I'm going to bring in some more contrast with the curves. And bring in some type. Of course, we don't want Arial. Just massaging the type a little bit here. I don't exactly know what I'm going to do with this just yet, but I just want at least some sort of identity. The thing is I keep thinking to myself, like, how is this going to play out in the background? And is this really the main idea that I want to express? I don't know. We're just going with what we got right now and just kind of, we're going to push forward. This is a very intuitive kind of like, let's see where my intuition takes me on this project. And, you know, that so far, this is where we're at. One thing that is bothering me a little is this edge. I was thinking that I could keep it a hardline edge, but I'm thinking now maybe not so much. It's just a little too much. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in a new layer here and just with some back over my photo persona. And the problem is that my brushes are all very, very small. So I don't know if that's going to work either. Because even if I take my brush, the full on biggest big, my computer is like telling me, no, Dave, this is too big. What color am I using here? Oh, not quite white. I want a white. I want a white. The redraw on my computer right now is like, yeah, I don't think so, Dave. And I didn't mean to be writing this on top of this text. In fact, I'm just gonna bring that down. If you've seen how I work, you know that I don't really care so much about being destructive with my work, especially when I know it's kind of taxing my computer. So I'm just gonna take all these, I'm gonna group them, and then I'm just gonna rasterize all that down. And that should help me a little bit. I still feel like she's just a little bit too pristine. She's a little too realistic. I feel like I wanna kind of posterize her or cartoonize her somehow. We're gonna play with some things. Throw on a posterized adjustment. Oh, that's kind of cool already, just like that. A little too intense, but I do want to be able to back this off a little bit, but it's all black. I won't be able to do that. Right now I've got a motion blur in just this one section because what I wanted to do is I want to throw in a pixelate. So I have to rasterize this one down. I'm gonna duplicate that section right there. Just so I can test this and make sure that this is going to work the way I want it to. And that was actually a good idea. It didn't hit quite where I wanted it to, but it's not terrible either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enlarge this one, multiply that, or over, let's see, let me try different ones here. Multiply, just trying to get an effect going on. That was a overlay right there. I feel like I want to do that more in more places. So I'm going to go ahead and make some more selections in here with large areas. I'm just gonna go ahead and do a blur on that. There we go. Let's do it one more time. Now I'm gonna copy all that. So I'm gonna do Command J, and then I'm gonna do the pixelate thing again. Maybe overlay isn't it on this one. Everything's so dark right there. I feel like I need to do something a little different here. By the way, if you hear a loud whooshing noise during this entirety of this video, it's because my fan is just going bananas. One of the considerations that I need to make here is that you can see that this line is right through her face. And that's basically, it's gonna be where these two are separated right here behind me. Do I want it to be right there, or do I want her to be in a different position? Or maybe should she be more over this way, where she's kind of gonna be behind my head most of the time when I'm shooting? And that's not really the point. Like if I move her this way, she's gonna be more here. Like one of the things I wanna do is change the color of this, probably to my branded blue. I like the idea that the eye is over the eye kind of thing. Or maybe that she's got her eye on the future. That's kind of an interesting take. Now to kind of mimic that, the lines that I've got going on there from that brush, I'm gonna bring in a circle, go with that blue, duplicate that, reduce that down, change that to like a overlay as well, which I kind of dig what that just did there. I feel like I just want to add some extra just grit and grime, so right? So we're gonna bring in one of my handy dandy textures. Ghost in the Machine is going to be a good option here because it's very futuristic, and Ghost in the Machine has got very much of that gritty, grimy, futuristic, glitchy thing happening. I think I might go with this one here. Glitch number 16, not very big. That's okay though, I do not care. Maybe what I'll do is I'll mask it because it's getting a little too intense around her face. Go back to the photo persona, break out the brush, make sure I'm on the mask layer, make sure I'm on black. If you ever want to know how to get your colors back to black and white, here just hit D. That'll bring it back to black and white. Bring in some of that softness back in, just a tad. I'm just trying to think of like what it's gonna look like when it's back there. I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna duplicate this group here, the circles, and I'm gonna move that one back up in here. I don't want it going over her face, so I'm going to put a mask on top of that. I want it to feel like it's in the background, and because she is the background, I can't really do that behind her head, so I have to mask it out. Okay, so next day, hair's a little weird, sweatshirt's different, but I went ahead and pushed forward on this project and just did a few little extra things. I added my little logo down there, then I've dropped in some text that I'd written in Procreate. We are the chosen, just as to give like a little bit more of an organic feel to what is obviously a lot of glitchiness going on, right? A lot of tech, a lot of electronic, a lot of futuristic things, and then my scrappy handwriting. This one's good to go. Now I'm gonna go ahead and chop it up and put it into 3 different banners. You can see I've got my 3 banners here, I've got my 3 banners here, and all I did is I just lined it up on one side for the first one, and then on this last one I lined it up on the other side, and then when I got to this one I just center aligned it, and that is pretty close. Even if it is just a micron off, right? Like if it's just a little bit off and it's just like there's a weird gap, it doesn't really matter that much, because as you can see by the panels behind me, though there's going to be a gap, a little bit of information that might be missing. That little bit of information that goes missing isn't going to be noticeable when it's back there on those 3 panels. So I'm going to export each one of those as a separate document, send it off to my printer, and in about 7 to 10 days I should have vinyl banners in my hand that I can post up on there, and that's a video for another time. If you enjoyed this one, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and make sure you hit that bell because you never want to miss this kind of goodness. Also, if you want more stuff like that, then click here. Be good today, be even better tomorrow. See ya.